Welcome to part 2 of Intro to Excel. If you're new to Excel, hopefully this is going to help you a little bit. And keep in mind, if you were actually in the classroom, you'd be sitting there for a lot longer than 10 minutes at a stretch. Alright, so I'm going to start working with this exercise here. A couple things just to point out, just to review. Remember, this thing is the name box. If I go into A1, my name box will display my cell reference, which is A1. Now notice that Sable River Foundation is showing up in A1. And on the sheet I ask you some questions, and I actually answered them for you, but I just want you to be aware, again, just like in the other video, there's nothing in B1 and there's nothing in C1. This information is just kind of going across these cells only because there's nothing next to it. That's why with this information, some of these things are cut off. Again, no content in B1, no content in C1. Content in A1 is Sable River Foundation. Also, this thing over here, if you can't see content, if I go to G3 and I click on it, and again, this thing is my active cell, this black border here. This thing is, when you see the thick black border, that's what cell or cells are connected. Keep in mind, and this is a terminology on the sheet, but when you select multiple cells, they're adjacent because they're all next to each other. If you had to if you had to select this cell and then another cell, you would hit Control. Those are non-adjacent cells that are selected right now. But notice it's only showing my last one right now. But these are non-adjacent. So ones that are bordering each other are adjacent. If they're not bordering, they're non-adjacent, and you have to hit the Control key. Also, your cell selector is this plus sign, which is just waiting for you to click on a cell. That's that little plus sign there. And if you need to edit text, you could double click in here and do it here, or you could actually edit text up here too. So either, wherever it's more comfortable. Sometimes it's just easier to see things up here in your formula bar. So again, name box shows your cell reference, formula bar shows the content of the cell. Columns across the top, rows going down. And what we're going to do next is we're going to do some formatting here. And I'm going to use the sheet that I give you. We'll have some instructions on here to kind of go over this. But one thing that I'm going to follow the instructions a little bit, and I'm going to do some other things too. But it says highlight cell range A1 through H1. Now keep in mind, whenever you see a cell range, it's going to have a colon in between. It's not going to have a dash, because a dash will be minus, as in doing subtraction. So whenever you see a colon on your instructions, that means a range of cells. So we're going to do A1 through H1. So A1 through H1, I could just drag, and we're going to do something called merge and center. Now that's up under alignment. I'm going to do merge and center. What that does is it merges the cells all together, so it takes out the dividers, and it also centers. We're going to use this primarily for titles. That's what we use merge and center for a lot, is putting in titles. Then it also says A2 through H2 merge and center. So this one as well, we're going to do merge and center. Okay, now you might say, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to do Control Z, Control Z. You might say, well, why didn't we just merge and center it all at once? Well, yeah, why didn't I think of that? Anyway, let's say I did both of those rows at the same time and I did merge and center. What happens if you have multiple cells? It's only going to keep one of them. So I'm going to cancel that. That's why I did one at a time. So I'm going to merge and center these, and then I'm going to merge and center these. And then obviously you could format these any way you want. I'll go back and do some of that formatting after the fact. You don't have to watch me do formatting. The next thing on the sheet says highlight cell range B4 through G7. So here's B4 through G7. Now G7 is down here. So what that means is I'm highlighting all this information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the number format to currency. Because right now it's just showing me numbers with decimals in, which I don't know what that is. But it's actually going to be money. So I'm going to click on here on this dollar sign. And that's going to show me the type of content. And the first thing you're going to do is go, oh, what did I screw up? There's these hash marks that are in there. All that they mean is that the information's not fitting in there. So don't freak out when you see these hash marks. It doesn't mean you screwed anything up. It just means that they don't fit in the cell, and that's because now we added a number sign and it made them a little wider. Now the way to fix that, even with just these cells together, is you could go to Format, and I'm just going to go Auto Fit Column Width. And it'll actually stretch out these columns so they could fit those numbers. But as long as we're doing this, we might as well auto fit all of these, right? So we could see everything, because some of these things are cut off. So we're going to go Format Auto Fit Column Width and make sure that we can see everything here. Now obviously this H we're probably going to have to make longer at the end to fit our information in. So now we have everything fitting in here. And one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do on your exercise is manually add information. Now before you do that, before you add this information in here, and actually down with the total too, I'm going to highlight all these cells. I'm also going to make sure that it shows up as a number, because if you didn't do that, you don't want to have to go back and do it again. So we're going to put numbers in here. So I'm going to start putting in numbers in here, starting with 16692.14. And when I hit return, it's showing it as a number. Now I'm going to add the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in here. Now I'm going to pause to do that, and then I'll put them in, and you're going to have to do that too. So let me pause. Okay, I put in my numbers in here. Now this last cell here, for some reason, oh, I didn't hit return. Once I hit return, all my number signs are showing up in here. So these are our numbers, and basically it's a fundraising spreadsheet, and it's showing these are the cities, and these are the breakdown of how they receive different money. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out a city total for each city, figure out what each city raised: Allentown, Chambers City, Pattinsville, Sable City. So we're going to get totals down here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add these up. Okay, now we don't want to add these up with a calculator, or we don't want to do it by hand or anything like that. We're going to let Excel do that. And one of the nice things is Excel is, has functionality built in, and there's some real easy ways to do that, but you're also going to need to know the formulas too. So one thing I'm going to show you down here is you're going to click in the cell where you want the total to be. You're not going to highlight the things you want added up. You want to be, this is where you want the total. Down here you want all this stuff added up. And Excel is smart enough to look, and wherever it sees numbers, it's going to add those up. So all I have to do is go in this cell, and I'm going to do what's called an Autosum. An Autosum is up here. If you see this thing called Autosum, it looks like I think it's a sigma symbol. It looks like a backwards E or a sideways M, or however you want to look at it. But anyway, all you have to do is hit the button. And what you'll see when you hit the button, if you look at this active selection here, it's showing you a little box of all the cells that it's using to add up. And it's actually writing a formula for you. Here's the formula: equals sum B4, and there's the colon, that's saying a range, through B8. And that's what it is, B4 through B8. And all that you have to do now is just hit return. So I'm going to hit return, and there it is, and there's my value. So what's displaying in the cell is not the same thing that's showing up in the formula bar. What's displaying in the cell is currency, the number, and what's showing up in the formula bar is actually the formula. And it's actually adding up B4 through B8. Now we can do the same thing for all these different things, but to make things quicker, here's a real quick thing you can do. You can copy and paste these, and what it'll do is it'll use something called a relative reference. Relative reference means that if there's a formula here, it's not going to use B4 through B8, it's going to use C4 through C8. Same thing here and here. So if you copy this, and maybe I'll just copy this. I'm going to right click and copy, and then I'll go to this cell and I'll right click and paste. And you're going to have all these paste options here. I'm just going to use a basic paste. Okay, and what it did is it pasted the formula, but it didn't paste the same formula. It pasted a new formula because it updated the cells. It does something called relative reference. Excel is smart enough to know that it's not just going to paste the same formula that you use here, it's going to update it because there's different numbers above it. Whenever you have something active, if you ever want to get out of it, things are blinking, just hit escape. Escape will kind of deselect everything. Okay, now instead of copying and pasting all these different times, there's even a shorter way you can do this. If you grab this little black handle right here, you got to go right in this bottom right corner. If you drag this all the way across, just drag it across, it's gonna basically do a copy and paste for all those columns for you. Okay, now at first you might think I did something wrong, but make sure you just auto format or do an auto fit, and that'll fit everything in. Because the reason it got too short, because these numbers are actually there's more digits in these numbers, so that's why it didn't fit. And what it did, if you click on each one of these, you see it's using D4 through D8. This is using E4 through E8. It's updating all these formulas, and it's using the values above. It's not just using the original. So that's a nice thing. That's called relative references when you use this Autosum feature. And keep in mind, because we're going to be writing formulas using this, and sum doesn't mean you're just adding. Sum just means that you're getting a total. So we're just getting the total of D4 through D8. And then over here we could do the same thing. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to Autosum, and it should Autosum everything to the left. I'm going to hit Autosum, and it did B, and you just want to check. It's doing B4 through G4, B4 through G4. And if it ever is doing something that you don't want, you can actually grab these corners and change them. But for now, I think we're okay. I'm going to hit return, and that's good. Okay, now go to this one that you have here, and we could do the same thing. We could drag this little bottom handle here. You don't just want to drag this. You want to drag the little bottom handle down here, and there, what it should do, and you check them. That's doing B5 through G5, B6. This one should be doing. This is adding up all the totals, and they made like $1 million from all these cities. So that's B9 through G9, which is showing up over here. Okay, so that's using the Autosum feature, and also by dragging that corner, we can kind of copy and paste our formulas, and it'll use a relative reference. So I'm going to stop here, and then we'll do some formatting, and that should be the end of Intro to Excel.